What does it take to make workshops work? And how can we facilitate collaboration that sticks and leads to results? My name is Miriam Hatness, and with the Workshops Work podcast, I am on the mission to find the magic ingredients that make workshops work. Today with me on the show is Rebecca Hopkins, and she is one of the facilitators I love geeking out with about the craft, about the art, about all the deeper layers and the emotional and personal bits. So be prepared for a deep, complex conversation where we are beautifully transparent and honest with each other and reflect on some of the big topics like feedback, psychological safety, the inner work, our quirks, cursing, being human. I hope you will enjoy the conversation as much as I did. And don't forget to scroll down to the show notes to find the links to reach out to Rebecca and to subscribe to the show if you enjoyed. Thank you for listening. Rebecca, I'm so excited to have you finally on the show. I was begging you for 3 years or so.
3 years? Jeez.
It feels at least like 3 years. Yeah. You're one of the favorite people I geek out on facilitation with.
Oh,
and now you're here. Welcome.
I'm here. I relented.
Yes. Calling in from Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I always start with the same question. I think
I know the question.
You know the question, you know the drill.
Question.
And for the first time, I think, maybe ever, I haven't sent you any prep questions that I won't ask.
I've got no idea what is coming, basically.
We'll roll with it.
We always do.
When did you start calling yourself a facilitator? Hoping and trusting you do.
Yeah, I don't really, do I call myself one now? I did. So the first time I called myself a facilitator was 2008. And I know it specifically because I was, the organization I was working for was going through a big merger and an acquisition. And I worked in technology at the time. So two big insurance and banks coming together, and they were doing a big agile transformation at the time. And so they brought in agile coaches and facilitators. And so I'd always kind of, looking back, been a facilitator because I was in the project space, getting people together to get outcomes. But these were like proper facilitators. And I saw them do their jobs and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. So they let me shadow them. They taught me heaps of stuff. And then I started calling myself a facilitator then. And I set up a facilitator network in the organization I was in so we could kind of get some practice facilitating in other business areas. So yeah, 2008.
Oh, beautiful. And I love the ripple effect around it.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting is that agile coaches, project managers are doing a lot of facilitation work without calling themselves facilitators.
Without even knowing, like that's just the job, right? You have to get, if you're going to get good business outcomes, good project outcomes, you kind of have to get people together in a room to talk
and
to
facilitate their collaboration, right?
Yes.
So for you, what makes the difference? And what would have made you maybe a better project manager if you had known about the facilitation piece before?
Oh my God, so much. First of all, so what would have made me better? The things I remember that these are really well-trained facilitators that came in. The things that I remember learning straight away that I didn't realize was the things that have stuck with me was, number one, always be in service of the group. That was something that I didn't even know that term. I didn't even know what that meant. So that's something that I've kind of carried through with everything I do now. What else did they teach me? They taught me to be present and adaptable. So a lot of it I kind of learned just by watching them because they came with like tools and things and ways of doing things. But it was the way they were as people that was what kind of left an impression of me. Like they were just these calm, tapped in humans.
And do you think it has to do with the fact that they're not attached to the outcome? Because I'm just thinking that a project manager, they're more in service of the project than of the people. So maybe that's already one difference. And they're somehow attached to the outcome. So they have a very clear goal. So they want people, they need people to do something. And as a facilitator, we only need people to be something.
Yeah. But they also, the other thing they don't have is all the baggage that comes with having worked with that group. Because if you come in as a facilitator, you don't have to go back and work with those people and sit with them and work with them. So if there's any unresolved kind of, if you're annoyed at someone in the team, or if someone's done something, or they sent you a shitty email, like whatever it is, you've got to then go and facilitate that as a project manager. If you haven't repaired and dealt with that, you're bringing that in as an external facilitator. And even when I go in now, I'm agnostic to the group, as in I don't have any history with them. So everyone is amazing to me. And so I ask about the dynamics, but I always ask, is there anything I need to know about the dynamics? But I don't treat anyone based on that. Does that?
Yeah. Yes, not your circus, not your monkey.
Not my circus, not my monkey. We've said that before. Exactly. Yes. And it is on individuals to go and have done that repair themselves, but people don't. Yeah. And so when you're a project manager or a business analyst or anyone who's doing that facilitation as part of your job, you're wrestling with way more than an external facilitator.
Yeah. And I think I won't continue the rant. I just want to articulate how sad I am about the fact that, as it seems, project managers get training in project management and all these tools and techniques and methods and maybe tech. But what you also need is these communication skills, how to resolve conflict, how to have these difficult conversations, how to facilitate a group, how to influence your stakeholders.
Yeah, one of the best things my leader at that time did for us as project managers and as coaches was sent us on coach training, and which taught us how to listen, taught us how to ask good questions. That actually became as helpful as like watching these facilitators, but understanding myself and how I was showing up in the room. That was, and it was interesting because it was based on, I think back at the time, coach training was based on David Rock's Quiet Leadership. He wrote a book called Quiet Leadership. His stuff's still around a lot, but I remember there being a lot of facilitation kind of things woven into his coaching books. So I think they were kind of closely aligned and super useful as in my role.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how once we start applying that, it has a positive effect. It's like a virtuous circus.
Yeah.
Maybe also
not
circus. Why not? Where you start to ask coaching questions and then people open up more and calm down because you make them think, which co-regulates your own nervous system and realize, oh, they're now so much more open and we have this conversation. So you do more of that.
Yeah, more listening, less speaking, which took me a good 35 years before I learned that trick. But it was honestly the best thing I ever learned. I'm like, I always say now, if organizations ask me to come in and teach people how to listen as much as they ask me to come in and teach people how to talk, then we'd have much better organizations.
Yes. And it's funny that you say that. I mean, I had a big mouth most of my life. And sometimes when I forget my facilitation hat at home, I still have a big mouth.
Yeah. That's why we rant at each other when we see each other. We just go on these walks and rant.
Yes.
Same.
Yes. And I was just thinking, if even I could become a better good listener, I think everyone can.
Same. Yeah, you're built similar to me. I describe it as we've got short thinking to speaking time that we process very quickly and speak, which now in my facilitation, I always weave in giving people 30 seconds of thinking time before they respond, because I assumed, I think even as a project manager, why aren't people answering so quickly? Just because I think quick, speak quickly like you do. But it wasn't until I was based in Hong Kong where there was a lot more introverts than there is extroverts in the groups I was with. And I just kept getting the feedback. Give us time to think. Give us just a little minute to think before you ask us to respond. And I was like, there's something there. I'm learning. So yes. So if we can do that, and if we do that for, say introvert friendly people, it benefits everyone. It's not like we're isolating extroverts or the quick thinking to speaking people. We're just everyone benefits from 30 seconds of reflective silence. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. And it calms everything down. And it's what I find interesting, it's not even the introvert extrovert. I don't think that every extrovert is a speak to thinker.
Yeah, agree.
And I find it fascinating also how much we trigger each other, the think to speakers and speak to thinkers, because I literally make sense of myself and my ideas by speaking them out.
Yeah.
I think that's why the podcast works so well and why I don't have to prepare and you don't.
Oh.
And I've noticed how much the think to speakers who just need the extra minute, they get so annoyed by the lack of processing time and silence in between. And I used to get very annoyed by the silence. I'm like, why are you not saying anything? Did I do something wrong?
Exactly.
Yes.
We're all built differently. Yeah, it's my husband used to remind me because he needs processing time and he was in corporate as well. And can I swear on your podcast, Miriam?
Yes, please.
Okay. He used to say to me, if you extroverts would just shut the fuck up for like 30 seconds, I've got something to say. So I feel like now I'm flying the flag for the people who need processing time, because my husband would often get criticism that he wasn't engaged, but he's like, no, I just need 30 seconds to formulate that thought before I speak. So I think we are missing out on a massive amount of knowledge in organizations because we're not giving people time to think, and we're celebrating the quick thinkers to speakers like me and you. And there's something that is, I don't know why, is more attractive to organizations about that. But actually, we're more prone to action bias. We're more prone to mistakes because we don't think it through. So we do need to get better at making sure the spaces allow for everyone's voice to be heard.
Yeah, 100%. Amen. And I think that one of the reasons is that most people feel very uncomfortable in silence.
Most people who are built like us, though, I think many a person is not. I think it's us with the quick thinking to speaking time. We start to feel it in our bodies when it goes silent. So, but people who need processing time love silence.
True. And then I wonder whether there are more facilitators who speak to thinkers.
I do not know. You should run some data on that. I reckon you could grab that data pretty quick.
Yeah. Because I was surprised to hear that there is quite a big share of introverts amongst facilitators.
Is there?
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm a kind of weird ambivert because I'm not as particularly fond of groups unless I facilitate.
You end up in this job. I don't like groups. You're like, I'll start a community. I'll be a facilitator. Tell me more about that, Miriam.
I think I find it as a participant or as a air quote normal human being, I find it extremely difficult to participate and belong to a group because I do like the individual deep conversations.
Yeah. I get that. I'm a terrible participant.
Yeah.
I'm much better I call it the power of the pen. I'm much better with the pen in my hand. Yeah, I get itchy pants when I'm a participant, but I try and do it from time to time because I like to remember how it feels and what I don't like as a facilitator or what I don't like as an experience, because I think as a facilitator, we can forget what it's like to be a participant and what irks us.
100%. And especially being exposed to new tech.
Yes.
I think it's so easy to forget how it is when the first time we were on Zoom and we don't know where the buttons are. And then people tell us that we should do stuff and we don't know where. And then.
Yeah. I'm always, now with AI coming, faster than ever, it's hard to keep up on what's new, what's happening, what's the latest thing. So, I think I try and keep up with that as much as I can, but it's moving pretty fast.
Yeah. And I had this funny phase with, it was never done before, that in the beginning, pandemic hit and I was all in tech and learning all these new things and applying all these new things. And then towards the end, removing all these new things.
I was with you on that journey as well. I was learning, what were we in? When I first joined Never Done Before, it was 2020 and there was a platform that we were on and we were all in, and then it was clunky. And so we were back to not using it. Then it's and then you're right. It's back to, I think that's part of the journey of facilitation, right? It's trying the stuff, experimenting, and then coming back to what works for you. Yeah.
And the group.
And the group, what works for the group. Yeah.
Because sometimes, similar with the whiteboards, I had a phase where it was all about beautiful mural boards and having everything there because it was so neat and tidy and structured. I'm like, if I really need them to take notes pull up a Google slide,
Exactly.
use the chat. How can we reduce friction as much as possible?
Yeah.
Because we have too much on our mind and too much distraction around us anyway.
Yeah. And those facilitators back at that merger and acquisition taught me that as well. Like I'd spend all this time doing these beautiful PowerPoints to present to senior management. They draw it on like a piece of paper, take a photo and put it up. Like they were like, just do things as quick as possible. We're talking about quick. We're not talking about beautiful. And I was like, huh? I'm going to go show that to a senior leader. And so they did everything really, we called it lo-fi. They did everything super simply. It was good. Got to go back to that.
I love that. And I wondered to what extent there's a very fine distinction between quick and hand-drawn, taking a picture, and just type something onto a PowerPoint that almost looks careless.
Yes. Yeah, it's that fine line between I haven't put any effort in, and you've got to know your audience, right? And even weaving in the tech conversation here, knowing your audience has to be part of what you deliver as well. I'll give you an example. So I work with banks, a lot of banks, and I also work with child protection services. Now, when I go into banks, they love bringing emotional intelligence and things like that because they don't do it as part of their everyday job. When I go into child protection services, they are drowning in emotions. They are drowning in shame and all of the things that are involved in child protection, that they need a bit of relief from that. So what I've been doing with them is making it as fun as possible to learn. So I did a quiz this week for them in Menti, and they all had like little avatars, and I made it that the faster you went, the more points you got. And it was all learning. We're building a feedback culture. So it was getting them to answer, is this statement a judgment or an observation? And they had to do it fast. And there was so much laughter and so much fun. And one woman won and they all cheered her. And I did quizzes. I did all just fun things, still the learning, but I made them all fun because, and if I'd have gone into a bank and done that, they would have thought it was ridiculous and childish. Whereas child protection services, I kid you not, in the chat at the end, like they said, can you always run our training for us? That was so fun. And that's because I always think, what does the group need? This group doesn't need me to trawl them through what shame is, what shame isn't. They know that stuff. They need a little bit of a break and to learn. Whereas, different audience need different things. So that's how I always think, what are they going through? What's going on for them? What's happening in their world? And then build what I'm delivering based on their needs.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And again, I think there's a nuance because there's something they need, and then the need below the need and what they think they need.
Oh, that's gone deep. Go, tell me.
Because so for instance, in banks, and I love that you said that you go into the emotional literacy because that's what they need.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether every banker would subscribe to that, that it's on top of their list of what they need.
It's true.
I'm all in. I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
Can we include the lawyers
right.
as well,
not everybody
and the consultants?
Knows. Yeah, I remember being with one group who said, emotion, there's a couple of decades of research that says emotion drives behavior. And two people are like, is that everyone? Are you sure about that? I was like, maybe not you two, because you're very left brain. I don't know. So there is resistance in logical spaces, but I try and put myself, because I've been in banking, I haven't been in child protection services, but I've spent so much time with these incredible men and women and hearing their stories and hearing what they've been through. I've got enough empathy to put myself in their shoes and think, God, if I'm doing that job on a daily basis and we're under-resourced and underfunded, like, what do I want out of a 2-hour training? What am I going to come to and be able to remember something? So it's not what they know they need. It's I guess it's my interpretation of what they need that I sense check with whoever I'm co-designing. So I do a lot of co-design. So I make sure that I've got someone on that side who's co-designing it with me to make sure I'm not coming in and doing something to some group. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Because also I would think that the way they give each other feedback, so the tools in terms of feedback they need might be rather different.
Yes.
And if you're learning how to give feedback as an emotional, literate and informed person, you start on a different level than when you give feedback coming out of banking.
Totally. Although there are some things that are present in all of those spaces that we don't talk about enough. So things like power, the power differences, and that in all spaces could be gender, could be height, could be, in child protection, we've got a beautiful group of Indigenous leaders. There's different power structures there. There's how our brains are wired. There's so many different power differences that's common in all that we don't talk about enough.
How do you address that in your training on feedback?
Yeah, we surface it. We literally try and get people to name what are the power imbalances in, because it's very different if I'm giving a peer feedback versus I'm giving my boss's boss feedback. Like there's a power in hierarchy there. And so what we talk about is what power is at play. And actually, I do something that I did in a workshop that you were in my breakout group. Do you remember we were in a workshop and our question was, what's your story? Was it, what's your relationship with power?
Yes.
It was me, you and Dov, and we had the most incredible conversation about our relationship to power. So our stories from growing up. So depending on my group, if they're ready for that conversation, I take it there. If they're ready for the, what's your relationship to power? And that one question, getting people, like you have to have built a safe container first to be able to have those conversations. But that in itself is part of it. Just being able to say, what comes up for me when you even mention the word power? Do I feel like it's a positive thing? Do I feel like it's scary? What's our relationship to it? Do you remember that?
Yes, totally. Yeah, I do remember, and I do remember our stories.
Yeah, me too.
And how safe did we feel around power?
Yeah.
Because then do we dare to challenge it? Are we then brutally honest, radically candid, or tiptoe around it with our feedback? True.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I do a lot of cross-cultural, because in Australia, we have a lot of cross-cultural teams just by the nature of our country. We have people from all different countries, different nationalities, and a lot of feedback training. We're still trying to push this radical candor, this you must be very direct, you must say what you think. And I think have you heard of Erin Meyer's culture map?
Yes.
She's got she's got a mapping tool. And I think your country is pretty close to our country when it comes to like the directness of it.
Germany, Netherlands.
Many Asian countries are bottom right of her kind of quadrant, which means, and it's interesting, often we can think that our way is the best way because it's direct. But often if you watch, I had this woman, actually it was in child protection, I had this woman who said she learnt her biggest lesson from watching Korean drama. She said, because the feedback is in the nuance. She said, I watch their faces. And she said, just one raised eyebrow can mean so much. And I think that's a really important kind of lens to have on this, that often collective cultures do feedback in this beautiful, subtle way that doesn't need this very direct feedback. If they've built enough trust over time, it can be just in these little suggestions that, because they prioritize the relationship. And interestingly, in her book, she said in one of her interviews, I think it might have been someone from China, said that direct way that we've been taught to do it and we're raised in our country is just childish. If you have to say, and I was like, wow, and so I even when I do feedback, I make sure we have the cultural discussion, because we do have cross-cultural teams here. We have lots of teams where we offshore things to India or the Philippines, and we've got teams, Vietnam now, we're getting a lot of tech teams.
Which is very different from the Chinese culture.
Which Vietnam is different from the Philippines, from China. It's like, so we have to be more aware of that. We can't keep pressing this direct feedback.
Yeah, interesting. And I wonder also, because receiving direct feedback, even if it is in our culture, it does something to our nervous system.
Even the word feedback, even someone saying, I've got some feedback for you, it like makes us cringe.
Because there's uncertainty. We don't know what's coming. There's someone kind of looking at our identity, evaluating us. So it is scary as such. So I can see how a more subtle way can be healthier. Assuming that you understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then
if someone just misses the point.
And I had a session with my coach yesterday, And at one point I said, okay, just be brutally honest with me and tell me
tell me
in my
straight.
face what annoyed you when reading the parts of my book, because I need that.
Yeah.
Don't
You don't want
sugarcoat it.
anyone to go,
I
have a
don't
think
understand
maybe
you.
about that little line you kind of said. Yeah. So there's times, right? There's times when and so what you've just pointed to is something that I've talked about in building a feedback culture is asking for feedback.
Yes.
Because that's a very different power dynamic than even your editor just going, can I give you some feedback, Miriam? As opposed to you saying, can you give me feedback on chapters 1 to 3? And I want you to look at not just grammar, but my tone. I want you to look at, and you've got the power then in that. So part of what we're building in the feedback culture work I do is saying, asking for feedback. If you can get better at that, saying, we're about, and even doing it beforehand. So say you and I are going into a meeting that we think is going to be hectic, saying, hey, Miriam, I know we're about to go into this meeting. Can you give me some feedback on how I'm coming across? Because I know that I can be a bit direct and this could be a sensitive topic. That's way more different than me doing something that, annoys someone in a meeting, coming out and you going, Beck, I need to tell you something.
Yeah.
Like different for you and different for me.
Yeah. And that's such a leadership move.
Totally. But how many people are not asking for feedback in organizations? Like if you could just do the asking for feedback more regularly, you'd probably cease the need to be giving people feedback because it'd be just the way that you do things regularly.
And funny enough, whenever I have a group train leaders on feedback, and it seems as seeking feedback is for them the most difficult part.
Interesting. Because of what?
And I think, and that was actually very interesting, mostly because they're losing control of then what they're getting. So it's this surrender to I'm in your hands now. And the solution for us is then something that you just modeled beautifully. Asking for feedback and being very specific in what you ask for. So we then would use a little kind of formula, a text that they can use. Okay, I'm working on this. Can you please help me and focus on that? What I appreciate is that, and please don't do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then suddenly we're more in control of what we get. And I think also when we get feedback, we forget that we can guide it in a direction that becomes useful.
Yeah, and you can let go of the stuff you want to let go of.
Yeah.
And also because often people will ask for feedback and say, once a year and say, how did I go this year? And you're like, oh my God, I can't even remember last week. So that's why having those shorter, specific, you're helping the person give you the feedback that's actually useful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Rather than just tick a box. Yeah. The other thing I do, which is helpful, is I get people who are ready for a deep conversation about feedback. I get them to think about what was disagreeing like for you growing up. And that is a super interesting question, right? Tell me, what was disagreeing like for you growing up?
Part of the game.
Yeah.
I think
I was raised in the north of England. Same. I was expected to disagree. Yeah, right.
Germany, growing up with a Jewish father. So yes,
tell us what you think. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think.
That we need to learn to disagree, especially with authority.
Totally. Exactly. Yeah. So that plays into how because and also how we're naturally built. So I've done my Clifton Strengths, and I've got in my top 5 one that is command, which is actually one of the lowest Clifton Strengths globally. But it's that I don't mind a bit of argument. I kind of like it. So I was raised in a house that it was expected. I kind of like it. I love a good debate. So I'm naturally built like that. Plus I'm used to it. Means that I'm very different to someone who, so my co-facilitator, Jazz, is Middle Eastern. She's from Iraq. She's a woman, and she came to Australia in her teens because we co-facilitate together and ask that question. So when she was growing up as a woman in Iraq, disagreeing was life or death. You cannot. And she's also naturally more of a warm people person. She's got loads of empathy and loads of kindness and positivity. So you can see how the tension comes up. So even when she and I work together, we've had to have a language that honors both of us, that we give each other feedback regularly, but I have to do it in a more gentle way. She has to kind of do it in a more direct way. And it's clunky, but it works because we love each other and because we care about each other, because we trust each other. And we've put the work in over time to trust each other. And I think that's often what's missed with feedback cultures is if you haven't put the work in over time to care about your colleagues, your teams, and you haven't repaired things, giving feedback is going to be almost impossible because it's always going to be heard in a negative way because of all the baggage. Back to the baggage.
Confirmation bias. We have our perspective and our view on a person, and whatever comes out of their mouth is just confirming what we thought about them anyway.
Yeah. And which means we can't separate the message from the messenger.
Shoot them both.
Shoot them both. Get rid of them all. This is taking a dark turn, Miriam. It's turned into Squid Games.
Sorry, I might need to delete that.
Yeah, I don't mind talking about this.
And what it reminds me of, something that we rarely actually speak about then in such trainings, is that it's all about the recipient and not about us. So we are learning all the tools, how we can become better feedback givers by applying the tools. But the translation to the receiver, what is your preferred way of receiving feedback?
Yeah.
And how can I cater to that?
What a great question. Like if only people said, how do you like to receive feedback? And there's not one answer to that. So you might say, on my book, I want you to be super direct. We're in a time crunch here. I want to know quickly what is wrong with it so I can fix it. If you're talking about, how you show up in your relationship and how you show up with friends, like you may not want someone to go, this is what's wrong, fix it. Do you know what I mean? So context matters as well. So you can't just ask someone you're wanting to give feedback to, how do you like it? And then assume they're always going to like the direct. Because I love direct, but if you're telling me something's terribly wrong with me, I think I might need a little bit of gentleness. Yeah. Just a little.
Yeah, and there are these areas where we are a little bit tender or insecure. Yeah. Where we might have massive blind spots. And we might have just a bad day.
Totally. That's messy business. But I think it's the one thing I get asked to do more than anything else is tough conversations, feedback. And often I'll be going back into the same organization and doing them again. So what I'm thinking about now is, what am I doing that's not sticking? What is happening? How do we make it stick more? Yeah. I'm thinking about that a lot.
And I wonder whether it has less to do with the lack of stickiness of your methods and our default that as soon as we are stressed and as soon as the shit hits the fan, we go back to default and we forget about all our manners and structures and methods.
Oh, yeah. If you had a camera that showed how people show up at work and how they show up at home, like even me, like I lose my shit at my kids and I would never lose my shit at you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's different because we relax more, but we're trying to do that in our house. We're trying to build a healthy feedback culture, even with my kids, where we stay out of judgment and just do observations. But it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like I said it last week, that something had happened and the kids were making fun of me. And I think I just hadn't eaten. And I said, I felt picked on. That's not a feeling. So I'm trying to make sure we discern between feelings and thoughts. And that's just a thought. I thought you picked on me. And as opposed to I felt ostracized or I felt shame or I felt like, what's the emotion? It's much harder to do that than it is to do the thought. So we're trying to do it in our family as well. And because I think if I can crack it at home with my 3 kids and my husband, then maybe I'll learn from that and be able to take that into some of the corporate settings and say, what did we do? And it's, for me, there's the real nuance in the words that we use, that I think versus I feel and the judgments that are in there.
Because very often we use the kind of safe emotions that are not emotions. I feel disrespected. It's like,
it's not an
doing
emotion.
something to me.
Yeah. So if you can put the word, if you can put the word think in there, then it's not an emotion. I think that's how I do it. So if you said, I think you disrespected me.
Yeah.
Like
so
if
someone does someone to me.
Whereas if you think of like if you feel that someone, or if you think someone has disrespected you, what's the feeling that's associated with that? Like the association of embarrassment or humiliation or, there's a loneliness. I feel lonely. I feel isolated.
Yeah.
Then that gets you to a really meaningful conversation, but it's a really vulnerable one. And depending on who you're having it with.
Yes. That's one of my big questions. So I speak more and more now about emotions in my corporate workshops and trainings.
Yeah.
And sometimes I even ask them just to double check, am I making sense? Am I too woo-woo now? Do you think that I lost my... Because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
And I think, especially when teaching the situation behavior impact model, the emotional impact, so to get people in the professional space to speak about emotions, I still wonder what are kind of professional emotions?
Yeah.
What are the emotions that we can speak about, and which are the ones that are basically taboo? Because
so happy, sad, and pissed off are the three. Happy, sad, and pissed off. They're the usual three. Or tired, which also isn't an emotion. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these seem to be
ones.
fine. And all the rest, those are actually important to be addressed or to be felt.
That's why I bring cards in. I've got a few different types of cards, but I've got one that is an emotional intensity deck. Mm-hmm. And I put it, there's families of emotions, and you get people at tables or in partners to sort them from most intense to least intense. And so that way they're not talking about their own emotions. They're debating, is grief more intense than fear? And, you know, they're kind of, and they have to move them. And then I get them to think about, what was the negotiation that you had that put that one ahead of that one? Then you get into like, oh, in my family, we never said that word, or in my upbringing. So then you've got the whole kind of trajectory from being raised.
I love that. Because I'm just imagining someone who recently lost a loved one. They know the intensity of grief because they've just been there. And if they're coming from a family where anger wasn't something that you showed, so anger is actually not, either they perceive it as very intense because it's out there, or it's not intense at all because they never felt it.
Yeah. And anger itself isn't a problem. Like, the feeling anger isn't an issue. It's our automated responses to that.
Yeah.
So for some people, it's the stuffing it down and screwing a lid on it. And then that has its own issues. And then others, it's the overreactions and the, you know, like road rage, right? Like, I don't know if you've been near where I live. It's a big shopping centre called Chadstone, which at Christmas is like road rage central. And I was there last Christmas, and someone cut someone off, and this guy got out of his car, went up to the other car and started bashing on the window. And I was just like, so you think of the emotion. So he went from behavior that straight to emotion. And I thought, Jesus, like that automatic. So he was angry, but he then offloaded and went and hurt another family because he couldn't manage his anger. So anger's, you know, there's some great movements that start when you're being angry. Like the Me Too movement was full of anger. There's lots of anger can be a very, very important emotion to drive change if it's channeled in the right way. But we don't. Our natural responses usually stuff it down, put a lid on it, or just let it loose.
Yeah.
You know, smash a car window, knock yourself out.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that anger is actually not a real emotion, but it's
I think it's a second. So I heard it called a secondary emotion. Mark Brackett's work says it's a secondary, but I don't know.
Because it's how another emotion actually comes out. So below the anger is often fear or sadness.
Something. Yeah. That's where we call having a data set of emotions becomes helpful. So you say, I'm angry, but what else am I? Okay, I'm angry and I'm scared, or I'm angry and I'm lonely, or I'm angry and I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed. That gives you much more of a way to know what to do with that. So if I'm angry and lonely and frustrated, loneliness is often you need to connect with someone. It's to reach out.
And that's why, so it almost with friends, we had this funny conversation, actually quite deep, where we realized that the situation we're most afraid of, so our an unpleasant emotion we feel most comfortable in, leads to the exact opposite of our biggest fear.
Oh, give me an example.
So for instance, for me, the unpleasant emotion I'm feeling most comfortable with is anger. And I'm pushing away everyone. I don't need you anyway.
Yeah.
But the loneliness part is what I fear most.
Yes.
Yeah. And a friend of ours, her most comfortable, unpleasant emotion is curiosity. And I was like, what? Isn't that great to be curious? And she's like, no, because when I'm in a situation that I get curious, so I go closer, although all I need is to take distance.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
if I'm afraid, then the coping mechanism is to go closer.
There's such good like all of these conversations just take us deeper, right, into knowing ourselves more. And that's, I think, what I try and do with my leadership training is how do you know yourself more? Because if you then know loneliness is a fear for you, then how do you design your life so that you have more connection? Or if you have a fear that even of curiosity, how do you lean into it safely so you don't, like, so they're just all really good conversations to kind of get you to a place where you can be more self-aware and have a more joyful life.
Yeah. And also how to invite other people into your life on a different level, because it's similar to the love languages.
Yeah.
If you know what people care for or what lies below the anger, then it's easier to relate. Because I think the anger, what's so beautiful about anger is it's outward looking. I can be angry at all of these people and it perfectly protects me from
Yes,
seeing the
everyone else is the
loneliness
assholes,
and the
not us.
fear and the sadness. And then I would have to sit in the corner and cry.
Like,
and instead
there
I
we
can
go.
just scream at everyone. Isn't that great?
Yeah. It's interesting because I see two patterns. I see that because that's how I'm built. But then often I see the other pattern with when I do my leadership training where people are like, I'm at fault. And they go straight to themselves. It's not the anger doesn't go there, it goes to me. I messed it up. I suck. And so some of us are more outwardly focused on our anger. Brene says blame is the discharging of discomfort and pain. And that's what I think of when we talk about that anger. So it's the discharging of that discomfort that's in our body. But some people turn that inwards at the first chance they get.
Oh, wow.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
No,
and then to be aware of these different pathways, because if you have a group, you need to cater to all of them.
Yeah. And you need to stay aware. Like it's knowing our patterns, being able to recognize them in other people so we can actually stay curious about them. Like even if I've done something in a workshop and I can see someone's getting teary, instead of like moving away from them, I'll just say, would you like my support? And I have to be very clear. Like one woman once just went, and that was just indication to me that was just shaking her head. Just the tiniest shake of her head was just leave me alone. I need to just process this. So part of facilitation is paying attention to those little moments. And it's hard when you're with a massive group of people. So I always co-facilitate. So if I'm ever with groups more than 20, even with 20, I like 2 facilitators, but always having 2 people there.
Especially for these conversations.
Yeah, especially for the deep conversations and building. So for me, you always have to have built a safe container to start off with, as safe as you can, given you don't know everyone's stories and backgrounds, but having co-created that first allows, and the group will go where it wants to go. Like the group will, if they don't want to go there, they will not go.
Yeah. And I would like to spend time on the concept of safe space and brave space, and where you see the difference and maybe the buzz. Because what I find interesting with the safe spaces is you cannot declare a safe space, and it means something different for everyone. So if people don't feel safe, that's
you cannot
change their mind. So what can you do for them to help them feel safer? But it's a fact.
Yeah, it is. Interestingly, so I've got 2 10-year-olds, 12-year-old. I talk to my kids about this stuff all the time. And my 10-year-old came home from school and said her teacher said they were doing like sex ed training, getting into their puberty training, that kind of stuff. And she said the consultant or whoever was doing it or the teacher walked in and said, this is a safe space. You can ask any questions. And my daughter came home and was like, she declared a safe space. So my kids now, like even at 10 years old, know that you cannot declare a safe space. Like who are teachers, facilitators? Who are we to declare anything?
Especially just walking into the space, not knowing the history of the kids and not knowing which kid is beating up the other one or laughing or mobbing someone.
All the dynamics. It's interesting. So when I have a trauma-informed approach and I have this 4-step checklist that I use whenever I'm thinking, especially when it's in person, but it works online, do the people feel safe in their bodies? So am I asking them to do something? So I have a no touching rule. Like back in my corporate career, leadership training workshops were often filled with stand in a line, massage the shoulders of the person in front of you, hold hand. Like I have a no touching rule because that's just safer for everyone. So the first checklist point is, do the participants feel safe in their bodies? The second is, do they feel safe in relationship with me? So am I welcoming them when they come in? Am I asking if I'm pronouncing their names properly? Am I warm? Am I inclusive? So how am I showing up? Am I being authentic? So do they feel safe in their bodies? Do they feel safe in relationship with me? Do they feel safe in the environment? The lights, the smells, the sounds, how the room's set up? And then do they feel safe in the systems and the processes? So that goes from even before they've shown up. So that's just my little trauma-informed checklist that I make sure that, and I don't know people's backgrounds. I don't know what, and interestingly, I remember when I was doing my trauma-informed training, I said to the leader, how can I not traumatize people? Tell me what I need to do as a facilitator to not traumatize anyone. And she said, that is an unrealistic ask. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do? She said, you notice and you repair. You notice and you repair. And so I thought that was such a good answer, because I don't know what question is going to trigger someone. I don't know. I don't know people's backstories. I don't know their lives. So there's going to be some things, and there has been things that I've said that people have come to me and said that offended me. And it will be something that was, and it's not the things you think. It's a story I told about my kids once that was a seemingly charming story, but it triggered this person because of her relationship with her kids. Like, I didn't know that. So what I have to do is I notice and I repair. And I repair always with being super, super clear on my intention and saying, and so now, because I've done that a couple of times, I thought, oh, what do I need to build into my practice and way of doing things to help lessen the chance of that happening? And so what I do now is I say, my intention with this story or my intention with this activity is this. So then I'm surfacing what my intention is, which then if it lands badly and it triggers someone, they at least know that wasn't my intention. Makes it a little easier to repair. Yeah, especially with things that I'm a bit like, especially when we're doing those, like if I'm saying what was disagreeing like growing up for you, like that could be a super traumatic question for people. Yeah. You don't know their background, right? Yeah. And so what I always say is, look, my intention here is to have a deeper conversation at what's impacting us and how we're showing up today. And so I always get clear on my intention, but also give choice. You've got choice on how you answer this question and if you answer this question. So there's a few things that as I've got better as a facilitator, I'm trying to make sure that I don't trigger people as much as I can. And then when I do, because I'm human and I'm not perfect, how do I notice and how do I repair?
I love that. Thank you.
Which is why you need two people in the room. That's why you always need two people in the room.
And then how do you notice?
Body language. Do you know what's interesting? One of the ways that people cope now that I'm noticing more than anything is they pick up their phone and scroll.
Yes. The pacifier.
Yeah. It's like...
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense because you can focus on something else. Because we used to have grief in my leadership training. We go near grief, which you can imagine in banking and in corporate can be pretty intense. And I once had a leader who went straight to his phone and started scrolling. And I went to him and just gently got him to ground his feet. I said, I asked for permission to talk. Can I talk to you? He said, yes. I said, can I just get you to wiggle your toes? Just feel them back in your body. And he was super direct with me. He said, this is not okay. I did not sign up to come and talk about grief. I didn't. Wow. And I said, that is a valid perspective. Are you willing to come back in the room and share it? And he came back in the room. He said, yes. And he came back in the room. And it was so fascinating because he said, I don't think we should be talking about this at work. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's... And another woman in the room said, how nice for you. I've just been made redundant. How nice for you. And so we had this beautiful moment where we just held space for, like, his response is okay, so is hers, because grief isn't just losing a person, it's identity loss. It's losing control of something. It's losing a leader who's your advocate. It's your body changing. Like, there's so many types of grief. And it was such a beautiful moment to have multiple perspectives honored in that room, because no one's right. No one's wrong and no one's right in these situations. It's just everyone's perspective.
Yeah. And I thank you for sharing this example. There's so many beautiful layers to that. So you went to him and didn't address him on a cognitive level to, oh, how do you feel, or what's going on, or put
Yeah.
away your
Get off your
phone,
phone. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you're distracting yourself, or
Yeah.
something kind of explaining or coaching, but wiggle your toes. So
Yeah.
how to get back in the body without telling him that he should go get back into his body.
Yeah. And even that's probably risky. I don't know that that's a perfect way of doing it. It's just what I could see he was not in his body at the moment. And how could I do something? Like he could have said no,
Yeah.
go away.
Yeah.
And that would have been okay as well.
And he trusted you. So he felt safe enough to say, that's not okay. You crossed the boundary.
Yeah. Such good feedback.
Yeah. And it's rare to get this level of directness.
Yeah.
And then to bring that in. And I think that's a very brave move from you as a
But it's
facilitator.
back to your question on safe spaces versus brave spaces. Like I'd spent, so that was a 3-day program. That was day 3 of 3 days. We always do a very long I call it co-creating the space together. And I never call it a safe space because exactly what you said, we cannot do that. But I do ask questions like, what support do you need from this group to feel safe and stay engaged? And that's giving people agency to say, well, I need to be able to stand up and move my body, or I need to sit at the front. Or I had one person say, I need to sit away from you because your voice is too loud. I'm like, sit at the back. I do have a very loud voice. Or I need the lights turned down, or I need people not to judge me. And so if we do it, that's one of 4 questions that we have at the beginning that allows people to see everyone's got different needs. And that's your chance to ask for what you need, because that is something we don't do often in organizations, is say, this is what I need.
Yeah.
I need this.
Not only in organizations, but yeah.
In life, right? Yeah. I remember it's when in the 90s and 2000s when open plan offices became like all the cubicles went away, and you had all these introvert software developers who were like, this is the worst idea ever. But they would all just like come in and put like big headphones on and just sit there because they just needed space to think, and there wasn't working from home back then. Yeah. But no one asked for it. Yeah. No one said, put the barriers back up. We actually need space and privacy to think. But no, we don't. We don't ask for what we need as often as we should.
Yeah. And that's so funny that the best intentions, it's someone who thinks that how their preference and how their kind of logic applies to all human beings.
Yeah.
So yeah,
someone
it's nice to see each other and to be together and to be transparent. And this must be the definition of transparency.
Yeah, I'm sure someone did. And this is where I think one of the best questions that I get leaders to think about when they're making decisions is, what are the unintended consequences? What are the things we haven't thought of? And, so you imagine that leader going, God, we need more connection. We need to break down barriers and see each other's faces. And if they'd have looked around and said, what could be the unintended consequences of this? What do people actually need? Why don't we ask people? Yeah. That's a good question.
I observe myself getting annoyed when facilitators speak of, we need to get from safe spaces to brave spaces. Because I think, isn't it the same? If a space is considered safe, then people can be brave in it. So why do we need this distinction? And I'm like, maybe there's something I don't see, and you're the person I can ask that question.
I don't know. I don't use either of those terms. I just don't. I don't even understand the term brave spaces either. I know it when I feel it. I know that if I've done a good job with that safe container, and it's not just those questions. It's from, and I got this from Priya Parker. You've read her books, The Art of Gathering.
Oh, yes.
So she talks about the moment someone says yes is when they've joined. So I do that when I work with organizations, like from the moment someone's been nominated to come on the program, what are we doing to build that connection with them, even if it's 3 months, 3 months till I see them in the room, from the kind of emails that we send to them, any pre-work we do, how do we nurture that and build connection? So that's what it is. Those brave spaces, safe spaces for me have a level of connection that is real, that is genuine, that is full of care and gives people choice. Like that is, so I tend not to even get kind of pulled into the argument of safe versus brave. I know that you can't demand either of people. I That I know that one thing that creates an unsafe space very, very quickly is when people are tested. And I'll often, if I deliver training on behalf of other people, I pull out any questions that test people. And what I mean by that is questions where you can be wrong. None of the questions ever in my workshops can you be wrong, ever. I'm not testing you on the content. I'm not testing you. I want to know your opinion on it. I want to know whether it lands, whether, like with the grief, like, what do you think? Like, that's why I wasn't triggered in that situation. I was so happy that I had someone who challenged the content, because I'm not there to say this is the way to do it, this is the right way. I'm here to say this is a way, take it or leave it. That's part of that safe space, is giving people choice, not testing them, meeting them where they are. There's all these little things that kind of are my style that I do, because I've been on the receiving end where that was done to me and I didn't like it. And I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it when someone said, Rebecca, what do you think? And I'm like, and I'm opinionated, right? Usually I've got something to say, but I felt it run through my body, and it was in front of my peers, and it was a technical thing. And I was just like, I didn't like it at all. And so everything that was kind of done to me in facilitation that I didn't like, I try and not do to others.
Yeah.
Which could be a blind spot for me. I don't know, but it's something that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to ask people we had to make animal noises once to find our team. If you've ever seen senior managers in a bank making chicken noises and dog noises to find their team, like it was a disaster. I was like, I'm not making a chicken noise. I'm just not. And so there's a lot of begrudging bankers just going, what's this shit? I don't know why that was a British accent, but I was like, what's this shit? But so none of that stuff. So choice, agency, and giving a space where people can ask for what they need. There's a lot in it. There's probably a lot of little things that I don't even know that are in there.
Yeah.
Does that help you with your safe versus brave? I don't know, Miriam. Does it?
Yeah.
Where do you land on it? Because you've got a question about it. Like, what's the sticking point for you?
I wonder whether there is a real distinction, or whether it's just one of those buzz things. Oh, I need to do things differently. And I have the impression that it's adding another layer to, there's not only the safe space, but there's a brave space, for me takes away the relevance of the safe space.
Yeah,
because
would say so.
I think we are not there yet where everyone understands what it really means. And there's still this connotation of, we're sitting in a circle speaking about our emotions, singing Kumbaya. Or there are teachers, facilitators walking into a space and declaring it a safe space.
Yeah.
Wait, I just want to stand up and leave.
Yeah. And maybe it's, as we talk about it, maybe the safe versus brave is a being versus doing. Like, maybe safe is your being, but if I'm being brave, I'm doing something, I'm speaking up, or I'm saying something, or I'm asking. Maybe that's why we can collapse them together a little more easily, because one is the action that comes when, I don't know.
Condition,
you know what I mean?
Met.
When the condition is met. Yeah. Very well articulated. Thank you, Miriam. Yeah. When the condition of safety is met, I can be brave. And some people can't, because it's interesting. When I ask the question one of the questions is, what are your fears or concerns about this group? And I've done this thousands of times. I've asked this question, and there's always two things that come up every time. There's lots of things that come up, but there's two that come up every single time. One is fear of being judged. Comes up more often than anything else. The other one that comes up is nothing. So you are going to have people who come in who are like, safe space, I'm here. And that's just how they're built. It's their power. It's their identity. There's a lot of things. Some people say nothing. No problems here. Some people say fear of judge. Some people have other things, but they're the two things that saturate in every single time we ask that question. It's fascinating.
Do you ask the question anonymously?
Yes. Yeah. So we do it with sticky notes. If I know that there's trust issues in the group, I even do all same color sticky notes, all same color Sharpies, and I collect them.
Yeah.
So if it's a group that's coming in from different parts of the organization, the dynamics are pretty friendly, I'll just let people kind of anonymously and stick them up. Then I get them to theme them. Then I get them to play them back. But if it's a group that I have some knowledge of or if I don't know the group at all, they all have the same sticky notes, same Sharpies. Because otherwise people are like, ooh, who put that purple one up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering, speaking about creating safe spaces and then exposing,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
feeling
Like that's
exposed.
Dave's handwriting. We knew it was him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And calling out that kind of behavior as well, like judging, because that when we do that safety, we build a safe container or co-create the experience. We then have some ground rules that the group has come up with. So staying out of judgment, being kind, whatever it is. When something happens that's not kind or it's judgy, we can point back to that and say, are we honoring that?
Yeah. And somehow there's the impression that feeling safe or not is very personal and then inward looking, and being brave is always towards someone or towards something external.
You can be brave in yourself, like, but it's an outward thing, isn't it? It's like
right? You do something. Sometimes you can be brave and feel a feeling, thereby being brave.
Yeah.
But usually it's then a quality that is visible, whereas the safety is something very personal. Nobody can see whether you feel safe or not.
Yeah.
They will see and judge you whether you're brave.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's the judgment around it. So are you judged brave or not? Do we have to be brave?
And what does brave mean for you? Because, I always say courage is getting to the edge of your comfort zone and taking one step over. So that would kind of be the bravery piece. And your comfort zone and my comfort zone are going to be wildly different. Like, I don't mind speaking in front of people and standing up. And, I always think my parents said she was born with a microphone in her hand. Like, I just have stuff to say. Whereas, the next person would be like, that is death for me. So brave for me is very different to the next person. So we can't even judge each other's bravery. Like, how do we know what's brave for someone else?
Yeah.
I don't even know why we ask the question on the brave space. I don't know. I don't think about it that much, the safe versus brave. I think, can we co-create a space where we can do great work and have deep conversations? That is all I ask. Can we? Especially for the type of work we're going to do. So if we're doing strategy work, it's a different container to if we're doing deep emotional work, if we're, but can we co-create enough of a space where we can actually do the work that we need to do?
Yes.
Brave, safe, I don't know. I don't get caught up in it.
What remains your facilitation challenge?
Maybe not getting out of my comfort zone enough. Like, I'm pretty comfy and I'm always trying to find things that do. So that moment around that grief, that story I told, that got me out of my comfort zone. And I was so proud of myself because I stayed in my body. I didn't get defensive. I took care of the group and I was like really proud of it. But those moments are really rare for me, probably because I do a lot of this stuff and I don't know, I'll have to get myself out of my comfort zone. That remains a challenge, stretching myself. Also keeping up with, am I current in what I'm doing? So I had a lot of facilitators who taught me things over my career. I joined your community and I learned things, but I'm always trying to find like, what's the cutting edge of facilitation? Like, what's new? Like, is it VR experiences, virtual reality, or is it, like what robotics?
AI.
I know. Like, I'm like, what is, kind of back to our conversation about not jumping to the shiny new tools all the time. Am I still learning and growing and finding out new ways of doing things? That's probably my biggest challenge. What's your biggest challenge?
I think staying curious long enough. I think the patience piece, especially if it's I'm a fast thinker, especially these kind of strategy workshops where teams have to come up with something and create solutions. That's why I don't really facilitate these kind of workshops anymore, because I think they're better facilitators than I am.
Yeah, me too.
And because I actually want to participate in these.
Yeah. We're too opinionated. That's it.
Exactly. But then when I know that it's about psychological safety, if it's about training, feedback, these kind of more emotional topics, I'm the most patient and the most non-judgmental person in the world. But as soon as it's about topics and content, it's stronger than me. I want to sit around the table and discuss.
Same. I always think it reminds me of how I talk about like the best and the worst of us lives on the same continuum. So on one end, I am curious and I'm calm and I'm patient and I ask beautiful questions. And when I'm stressed on the other end, I'm the most obnoxious know-it-all.
Yes.
That when I get an opinion on something and I want to say, and then I'm like, and then I just get so in it. And then I look around and I'm like, I've just frightened the shit out of everyone. I'm like, rein it in, Hopkins, rein it in. But I do get passionate about things. There are topics that I will, well, you've heard in this conversation, I do. And that's back to, you know, when we talk about what was disagreeing like when we grow up, like what emotions were, how do we label them? Because my husband will say, like, why are you raging? And I'm like, raging? I'm like, I've got a couple more notches before I get to rage. Like but he grew up in a very calm house. I did not grow up in a calm house. So for him, just like this, how I'm being now is like more than what his family would do. Whereas in my house, this is like the mildest.
Yeah, because otherwise you're not heard.
Exactly. I'm the youngest of three. We're from the north of England. We're a shouty family. Well, how it worked in my family is you'd be animated, you'd say something, and then if people didn't listen, you stood up and then you said it even louder. So,
Yes.
you know, that's just how. And so when I work with people in Germany and the Netherlands, like when I was doing that work in lockdown, oh my God, I'm like, you are my people. We would get shouty at each other. There'd just be F-bombs and we'd like shout. And I was like, how good was that? And I was just like, I was with my people, that we were just very full on. Then when I was living in Hong Kong, opposite. I'm with a different culture and I learned more about my facilitation in Hong Kong than I do with working with Germans because, you know, we're more similar. Whereas in Hong Kong, I was like, wow, there's other ways of doing things that are as effective, if not more.
Yeah, I find it very interesting. I experienced something similar as you described, the adaptability, almost like a chameleon. So I can adjust to different cultures and even the podcast interviews. This is maybe 336, maybe.
Jeez, well done.
See how long it took you, huh?
Yeah, it did actually.
And I'm a different person on many different podcasts.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm fast, I'm witty, I'm cursing, and other times I'm reflective and...
You're always fast, witty, and cursing with me, and I love it.
Yes.
But that's a good observation because that's back to even the feedback we were talking about. We're going to bring out different parts of each other. Like that is, even the energy we bring. Like I'm at my best in these kind of conversations where I know you're not going to get offended if I say something. And I know that we can have a disagreement. Like if I'd have said something that you disagreed about safe and brave, like we would have had a debate about it. Like it's not, I don't take it personally. You don't take it personally. But if this was the first time I was meeting you, I would be probably a little more reserved, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. And sometimes we just sense it. I think the first time we met in person, we're immediately at our normal, natural levels. I think it might be more difficult online. Not really.
No. We were the same when we met online.
Yes.
It is because I do think even the energy can come through here, right? Like but it's not for everyone. Like that's, So, we're multifaceted humans. I have bad days. You have bad days. I have days where I'm like, I am least, curiosity is one of my values, but I do become a horrendous know-it-all when I'm stressed, when I'm overwhelmed, when I've got 3 sick kids at home, when the work's piling on, and you think what it's like for people in organizations every single day, that they are going in, that they're working with people who they might not have repaired with. They have, my age now, I've got aging parents, I've got young kids. Do you call it the sandwich generation now? It's happening in Australia. It's called the sandwich generation. That we're sandwiched between aging parents and young kids because we're having kids later. So that's the pressure. And we're also at probably middle to senior management level as well. So it's this, and then you put into that mix if you've got any kids with mental health issues, if you've got mental health issues, if you've got neurodivergence, if you've got disability, if you've got any of these other things, like we're not going to be our best selves turning up to work every day. Like that's too big an ask.
And I realized that this is one of the biggest pieces of my work now with groups, especially when they're coming from corporates, is normalizing that we're all humans and we all have bad days. And that in most of the cases, when someone is snapping at us or doesn't smile, it has nothing to do with us.
Yes.
Who in this group has ever had a bad day at work, woke up without coffee in a bad mood? Hands up. Oh, look around.
I know. I ask the question often when I'm with big groups and I say, who hasn't got something else going on outside of work right now?
Yeah.
Not one person, not
Yeah.
one person. And, some people have like, oh, my dog's dying. Some people, people have got stuff. People have got stuff going on. That's deep.
Yeah.
And we come into work, we put on a brave face. And, for some of us, work is a relief.
Mm-hmm.
Work can be a relief from whatever's going on. For some of us, work is the safe space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's
It's been a long time for me.
Yeah, and me.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. And then, and I think many also just fearing the judgment that, oh, you cannot bring your private self to work. It's not professional. And then walking around with this mask.
I did that for a long time. Like I was going through IVF for maybe 5 years of my corporate career and I hadn't told anyone.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't until, and I was holding it together pretty well until like a doctor decided to ring me with my, pregnancy result. And I was sitting at my desk and it was you are not pregnant. And I was trying not to cry in the middle of my colleagues. But I stupidly had left an IVF invoice or something on my desk. And I remember this one guy coming up to me and he's like, I never would have guessed. And I thought, yeah, because I've stuffed it down and screwed a lid on it because I was working in a team of all men. And, we had to travel for work a lot. And, you'd have one guy go, how come Beck doesn't have to travel this week? And I just wanted to scream at them all because I'm ovulating. And I couldn't because I worked in a male-dominated industry and they couldn't have given two hoots about, whether I'm ovulating or not. But that had to be, it was self-protective that I didn't want to bring any of that to work because I didn't have anyone who I thought would understand. Whereas those conversations now are happening. We're having conversations about menopause at work. There's conversations about, infertility, and that stuff's happening a lot with domestic violence. Like they're all happening where the blend of home and work is actually happening a lot more than it was when I was in corporate, where that stuff was at home, that was at work. There's now just more opportunities to have those conversations if you want to. Like not everybody wants to.
And if the culture is there, because, this could be an entire different conversation because maybe they don't give a damn whether you're ovulating or not. So there's one part of shame or judgment, but then, she wants to get pregnant, so she will be out of work for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then there's suddenly this physical safety. Will they kick me out now?
Oh, well, it's so interesting because I got a big promotion around that time. And I remember the CFO was like my mentor and he was like, what do you want? What do you want? And I burst into tears and I said, I want to be a mother. And I was just like, because I just got to that point that I couldn't hold it in anymore. And he said I was a disappointment. I didn't last very long in that role. I was just like, I don't want this. I definitely don't want this. I want to be a mum. But I disappointed people, like senior leaders who wanted me to be something. Yeah. It was a wild ride. It really was. Not for the faint-hearted. Anyone who's doing IVF and working at the same time, it's a lot. Or menopause and working or whatever, whatever's going on. Like holding those two parts of your life together when you're in corporate is hard. Or it was for me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard it. I hear it from many. Yeah. Luckily, I haven't experienced neither of them yet.
Menopause is coming to get you, Miriam.
Yes.
Call me when it does. I'm through it. Call me.
I'm still Googling for the magic pill. I called it my Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah.
Bubble.
You're not getting away from it, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then being in a relationship with another woman. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fun times.
Yes.
You're going on holiday, so,
Yes. What would be your advice to your younger self?
Great question. Be kind to yourself. I was very hard on myself. Very, very hard on myself for a good 30 odd years. I thought speaking to myself badly was what gave me an edge, was what made me competitive, was what made me good at my job. And I did this one activity with Kristen Neff, who is the self-compassion researcher. She's got 20 plus years in self-compassion research. And you had to write down what the challenge was and what if you spoke to yourself in a harsh way like you normally did, and what if you spoke to yourself kindly. and just see what the result is. Like, do an experiment. And I realized that it actually doesn't change the outcome, but it changes the journey. That I can actually just give myself a little bit of a break and a bit of kindness. And I'm still, as energetic and still want to do great things. So I wish my younger self had known that the journey just would have been, I'd still have been as effective as I was and productive and all the things, but it would have been a nicer journey inside my mind anyway. So I'm trying to teach that to my kids now. Like, that's what I was having a chat with my daughter this morning. And I said, what would you say to me if I had this challenge? And she was like, that you're a good person. I was like, that's what you say to yourself. I'm a good person. This is hard, but I'm a good person.
Oh.
What would you tell me? I want to know your answer to that. What would you tell your younger self?
Listening to my own desires more. So what is it that I want and what I care for and what my values are, and just ignore all the rest. I think for the longest part of my life, I was trying to live other people's lives and live up to other people's expectations and their goals, because I was constantly running to the next thing and never stopped to actually sit down and think, so what is it that I want?
Yes. Have you read, there's a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying?
No, it's sitting in one of the bookshelves.
So the number one regret is I lived a life based on someone else's expectations. Such a good thing to think about. Like, am I living a life based on my desires and my expectations? I always joke that, like, I come from a very working class north of England family, and I always joke that the best thing my parents did for me was have low expectations. Like, they just didn't. They didn't expect I go to uni. They didn't expect, I did all those things, but there was no expectations. And that wasn't by design. It wasn't like they sat down and was like, we're going to take the pressure off. They just had their lives and they were working hard to provide for us and move us from England to Australia and all these things, that they just didn't have expectations. And I think that's a real gift to me now as an adult, that I haven't lived a life based on anyone else's expectations, because there were none.
Lucky you.
I know.
I come from working class, so both of my parents don't have a high school degree.
Yeah.
And all their hopes and all their investments and all their savings just went into their children, so that we will have a better life, easier life, better career.
Yeah. Did they have expectations of you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, lots of them. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, expected to do a certain job, or?
Yeah, having a career, corporate job. I think for the first 5 years of me being an entrepreneur, with every new client, my mom would say, maybe they're going to offer you a job.
Yeah, wow.
I'm like, Mom,
It's that one way of job. Yeah, one way of.
So being a lesbian entrepreneur was.
Oh my God! You're like, what? You failed them miserably.
Sorry, Mom.
It's interesting. When I got my biggest promotion, working for the CEO of one of the banks back around that time when we had consultancy, and so around 2008, 2010, it was interesting because my dad didn't say, he wasn't like wowed by it. He wasn't like, oh, she's got this big promotion. All he wanted to know was, did I get more annual leave? And could I still, was I paid, like, in his English accent, like, do they still give you 4 weeks holiday, or do you have to work them? Like, it was just this, like, are you going to get a break? Like, there was no, very different upbringing when they were just surviving. They were just surviving.
How did you make the switch from the person who was in corporate and talking in a tough way to yourself, to creating safe spaces, to be emotionally literate, to feel and to do all of that?
We need a whole other podcast for this one.
Do you remember the moment or the phase in your life? What made the...
Yeah, I do, but it's a very depressing story. So you might not, like, I'll tell you, and you could always cut it out of the podcast. But when I had that senior job, I'd been told I'd never have kids. The doctor said, you will never have kids. I'd gone through early menopause, and we were up in Brisbane, and I said to my husband, I think I'm pregnant. And my husband's like, you're not pregnant. Like, we've been told we can't have kids. Turns out I was pregnant. And I got to my 6-month scan, and I went to the doctor, and they said, your baby has spina bifida. We're going to have to terminate. And so I'd had like 7 years of trying to have kids, all this IVF. I fall pregnant naturally and then get told I have to terminate this. And when you terminate a pregnancy at 6 months, you have to give birth. There's me before Ruby and there's me after Ruby. Like that's that. And I think some people, that's a gift, right? Like that to me. So I always call it the gift of Ruby, who was my daughter who was born, and her life ended the day she was born. And that was the gift that changed me, because you can't cut, like the other side of that, you can't be unchanged. And that was when I started realizing what really mattered. And I started asking myself better questions and started saying, what am I going to do with this life? Like it solidified my husband and I, and we got lots of therapy and we grieved. So when I had Ruby, I quit that corporate job. We moved to Bali and we did yoga for 2 months and just cried. And then we did Eat, Pray, Love in reverse. We did Bali, then we did Italy, because one of his friends was living in Italy who was playing rugby for Padova. So we went and lived in Italy for a bit, and then we moved back to London. And that's where we started doing more IVF treatment, and I used donor eggs to have my kids. But that was that. And so sometimes it takes a really fucking terrible thing to happen to shift. I don't know if there's any other way. Maybe some people are, I don't know. I don't know if there's, some people have really traumatic things happen and then they emerge different. It doesn't have to be as traumatic as that, hopefully, for everyone. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what the question was now, but that's the before and after. I'm a totally different person. Because then I went and did my coach training. I started to do more meaningful stuff. I was making that shift anyway. Maybe it was age, but that was definitely the turning point.
Thank you for sharing that. And how beautiful that you could do that with your husband.
Yeah, a lot of marriages don't survive that, actually.
Yeah.
They don't. Whereas we had a lot of therapy, a lot of grief counseling, we did a lot of processing of our grief. But we were lucky because she was our first child. I met people who had the same experience as me, and they already had kids. So they had to go back to being a parent straight away. They had to go back to work. So we were really lucky that we both had corporate jobs. We both had enough money to, chuck in our jobs, go to Bali, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a different context. So yeah, we had a good experience with being able to have the space and time to process our grief, which is why it's also why I'm really good with grief as well. That's why I can do those workshops, because I can hold space for everyone's grief easily now.
Yeah. And that's Cornelia Robertson speaks a lot about grief in her work and says that that's the biggest problem in society, that we forgotten how to grieve.
Yeah. There's almost like a collective agreement to not grieve. Like, I don't know whether I mentioned this to you when we walked, but when Princess Diana died in 97 and the outpouring of grief in London, when there was all those flowers put out and people just sobbing and sobbing, they don't have any connection to her, but I think that's unprocessed grief of their own, that then there's a valid
projection.
Yeah, there's a valid, it's okay to grieve because someone we revered has died. So it doesn't look indulgent, or I don't know what it is, but there's like permission to grieve. And I think that's why we often can't be with others' grief, because we haven't processed our own. We should do a whole one on grief. I love talking about it.
Yes. Now that you warmed up.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
It was worth the wait.
It was so fun. It was literally like we were just going for our walk and chatting.
Yes.
I hope it was useful to your listeners.
Thank you for staying tuned and for listening until the very end. I hope that you found the inspiration and the wisdom that you are looking for. And I hope that you will subscribe to the show so that you never miss any of the interviews with another inspiring facilitator from across the world. I'm devoted to continue this podcast and to deliver weekly an episode that maintains the quality that you expect and you deserve. And if you would like to help me to maintain this quality and to keep the podcast free, please help us. Visit workshops.work/support to make a small donation to keep the podcast free. Thank you so much. I hope to be in your ears next week.